Chuan's 18th divorce letter to me. I finally signed it. He was stunned for a moment, but quickly adjusted his emotions. Don't regret it after signing, and don't come crying to me later. I ignored him and started packing my luggage on my own. The next day, he couldn't wait to marry his white moonlight into the mansion, and at the same time I left through the side gate in a carriage. He watched the direction of my carriage and was about to chase after me, but was stopped by his white moonlight. Your Highness, today is our wedding day. Don't let an insignificant person ruin your mood. I laughed out loud, looking at the carriage full of gold, silver, and jewels. Yeah, I am insignificant. I just took half the fortune of the regent's mansion. That is all. When Chuan's people delivered the divorce letter, I was hosting a banquet for the noble ladies of the capital. He seemed to deliberately embarrass me, having the servant come in and speak in front of everyone. Princess Consort, this is the divorce letter His Highness asked me to give you. He says you must sign it today. The courtyard that was full of laughter instantly became silent. Even the Marchioness, who always loved to mock me for being petty at banquets, fell silent. Everyone looked at me with surprise, while also at a loss. I calculated the date. Today is the 19th. Next month is his white moonlight Jiang Wangshin's birthday. It seems Chuan wants to kick me out of the mansion before then. The servant who delivered the divorce papers was still trembling, afraid I would take my anger out on him. Too bad. I am not that hot-tempered. Chuan would have everyone in the kitchen given 30 strokes, just because the pastries he sent didn't suit Jiang Wangshin's taste. I couldn't do something like that. You only gave me the divorce papers without preparing brush and ink. How am I supposed to sign? You may leave for now. The servant looked relieved and immediately withdrew from the courtyard. I raised my wine cup and smiled calmly at everyone. How embarrassing for you all to witness this. This may be the last time I can invite everyone over using the prince's name, but the road ahead is long, and there will always be a time to meet again. The atmosphere was eerily quiet. Some forced a smile and toasted me, some looked at me with pity, but most couldn't wait to go home and share this joke. The banquet ended hastily. I had people clean up the courtyard and put away all the wine vessels and dishes into the storeroom. After giving instructions for the remaining work when I returned to the courtyard, there was an extra person there. Chuan sat at the stone table in the courtyard drinking wine from years of martial arts training. His back was perfectly straight. The spring light fell into the courtyard, and through the dappled shadows of the trees, he looked even more handsome and elegant. It seems I was also deceived by this good-looking face back then, which is why I married him. You are here. Chuan just glanced at me, then had someone bring out the divorce papers again and place them on the table. Brush and ink were already prepared beside it. No excuse this time, right? Hurry up and sign. He took another sip of wine. His eyes looking at me showed neither sorrow nor joy. I picked up the divorce papers and reviewed them carefully, my gaze lingering on voluntarily agrees to divorce and return home for a moment. Come to think of it, we were childhood sweethearts. My father was his first teacher. Me father was stern and old-fashioned. He didn't like girls going outside, so Chuan would send me little novelties every day. Later, because of the war, my parents both died. I was left homeless and wandering until I encountered Chuan, who had already joined the army. He was a foot soldier, I was an orphan girl. He still grabbed my hand without hesitation. Don't be afraid, Ying, as long as I am here, you still have a home. I've known Chuan for 18 years. This is the 18th divorce paper he has given me since we got married. I picked up the brush and signed my own name on it. From now on, there is no Mrs. Liu, only Su Ying. He handed the signed divorce papers to Chuan. He was stunned for a moment, but quickly composed himself. Don't come crying to me with regrets after signing this. I gave you chances. As long as you were willing to give up your position as the legal wife, I could still ensure you'd want for nothing. But you just don't know your place. He was blaming me for refusing to agree, which had forced Jiang Wangshin to stay in the house outside for more than half a year. I didn't want to argue with him. I just calmly put away my copy of the divorce papers and went inside. Chuan couldn't wait to share this good news with Jiang Wangsun, so he left the manor that very day and didn't come back all night. I rested for one night, then started taking inventory of all the assets the next day. The new emperor was young, and it took Chuan a full 10 years to go from a lowly soldier to the regent, who now held power over the entire court. Officials sent gold, silver, and jewels flowing into the manor like water to curry favor. Now that Chuan was no longer short of money, he naturally forgot where the money he spent over those 10 years to build connections had come from. From the very beginning, I sold my family heirloom jade bracelet to buy him the status of a squad leader. Later, I learned to open shops and do business myself. Whenever money was needed, I never hesitated, and I forcibly paved a path to the heavens for Chuan. What I got in return was a divorce letter. Over a dozen accountants gathered together and clicked their abacuses for 3 whole days before finally calculating the portion of assets that belonged to me. These past few days, I've been strolling around the capital, checking on the shops while I am at it. Currently, the most profitable businesses in the capital are the clothing workshop and the Golden Jade Pavilion. I had just entered the clothing workshop when the shopkeeper came to report. The prince came yesterday and said he wanted to order a new outfit. As he spoke, the shopkeeper handed me the order slip. One glance was all it took to see. This was an order for wedding attire, and it was an extremely lavish set of wedding attire. The golden phoenix on it alone would require 10 embroiderers working day and night with gold thread for 10 days. How much deposit did he give? The shopkeeper didn't say anything. Just then there was some commotion from downstairs. A carriage had stopped at the door. Chuan held Jiang Wangsun's hand as they stepped out of the carriage. Looking at the words tailoring shop on the signboard, Jiang Wangsun showed a satisfied expression. This is the most famous tailoring shop in the capital. Even noble lords and ladies frequently patronize it. Chuan immediately stated that he had already placed an order here yesterday, then held her hand and led her inside, calling for the person in charge. This prince ordered wedding garments here yesterday. Bring out the design sketches for me to see. The person in charge bowed with a respectful tone. Your Highness, noble people tend to be forgetful. I am afraid you've forgotten that you hadn't placed a deposit yesterday. Hearing this, Chuan's expression changed instantly. Absurd. Does this prince lack such a small amount of money? The person in charge was sweating profusely. I looked toward the shopkeeper, who understood immediately and went downstairs to respond. Please calm your anger, Your Highness. Our shop's rule is that work only begins after a deposit is placed, and the remaining payment is made after the clothes are finished. Nonsense. How come this prince never knew about your rules before? The shopkeeper feigned surprise. Does Your Highness not know this shop is owned by the princess consort? The princess consort is the proprietor. How would we dare take your money? It is just that now, hearing this, Chuan's expression was quite a sight to behold. First surprise, then immediately followed by anger. He didn't want to lose face in front of his beloved. He had never paid before and thought it was because of his prestige as the regent prince, never realizing it was because of me. I stood on the 2nd floor watching the commotion below when a voice suddenly came from behind me. To not even know your own wife's business, for a married couple to be this estranged. How interesting. How interesting. How interesting. I turned my head toward the voice, and what caught my eye was a face so stunning, it seemed almost divine. Beneath his peach blossom eyes hung a tear mole, and a faint smile curved at the corner of his lips. Even with gold and jade adorning him, nothing could steal an ounce of his brilliance. But looking at this face, I really couldn't bring myself to smile. I didn't expect young Master Pi to be here. Pei Yanjiao was quite the renowned figure in the capital. Among the old noble families of the capital, the Pi family had the deepest roots, standing firm through several generations without falling a true aristocratic house. As the eldest legitimate son whom the family poured all their resources into nurturing, Pei Yanjiao was also the person Chuan feared the most. This man carried himself with an air of romantic charm, yet his thoughts were unfathomably deep. These noble clans were all interconnected, and Chuan had stumbled plenty of times dealing with them. I've long heard of the tailor shop's reputation, so I came specially to see it today. The Shangxi festival is coming up soon, and the elders in my clan keep urging me to marry. If I wear clothes from this shop and stroll by the river, who knows, maybe some young lady will take a fancy to me." As he spoke, Pei Yanjiao folded his fan, his gaze sweeping across my face. "If you are here to order clothes, just say so. Why the need for such a long explanation? Besides, Pei Yanjiao lacked nothing looks. Background, talent, he had it all. So many noble ladies had their eyes on him. Did he really need to go through all this trouble? Perhaps it is because Chuan has been bad-mouthing Pei Yanjiao in my ear all these years. I really don't have a good impression of him." Pei Yanjiao didn't get angry seeing my forced smile. He just glanced downstairs at Chuan and Zhang Wangxin and clicked his tongue. "Would rather give up jade for a stone. Some people really have no taste." I didn't understand what Pei Yanjiao meant by this. Although Zhang Wangxin is now a criminal minister's daughter, she was once a proper official's young lady, skilled in all of music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. Chuan once said himself that my status and Zhang Wangxin's were worlds apart. I am just a commoner's daughter, and I am still out there showing my face doing business. He should have just divorced me directly and married Zhang Wangxin, but only to save my face did he allow me to voluntarily give up my position as legal wife and become a concubine. By the way, I wonder if shopkeeper Su will go to the southern outskirts on the Shangxi festival. Every year the southern outskirts are especially lively during Shangxi festival. Unmarried men and women look at each other, and if they meet someone they like, they can pick a flower to give to them. More importantly, lots of people means lots of money to be made. So I had already arranged for several shops to go do business there. Naturally, I had to be there to oversee things too. I'll probably go. Really. The smile in Pei Yanjiao's eyes deepened. Then I must dress up carefully so shopkeeper Su can spot me at first glance. After saying that, he turned and left with his people, leaving me gnashing my teeth on the spot. What does this lecture mean? Why would I join in the fun at the Shangxi festival matchmaking event? Just as I was fuming, the maidservant beside me suddenly handed me something. This was left behind in young Master Pei's private room just now. I looked closely. It was an exquisite double-fish jade pendant of exceptional quality. When Chuan returned, I was drinking tea in the courtyard, listening to people beside me report the accounts from various shops. He stormed up to me and questioned me without any courtesy. "The tailoring workshop is your business. Why didn't you say so?" "If I didn't say, wouldn't you think to ask?" Chuan fell silent for a moment. In the past, when the accountants came to report, I never hid it from him. He sat beside me, and if he'd listened even a little, he would have known everything. But he never cared. When he needed money, he just sent someone to the accounting office. Fine, since that is the case, let me ask you now, what other businesses do you have in your hands? I couldn't help but laugh out loud. I put down the teacup in my hand, covering my mouth, nearly laughing to tears. "We're about to divorce. Why are you asking so many questions?" Chuan was choked, speechless, and at that moment Zhang Wangxin rushed out to shield him behind her. "Why must sister be so aggressive? If you had read more poetry and books on ordinary days and cultivated some grace, you wouldn't have been despised by the prince." Zhang Wangxin knew I hadn't read many books, so she loved to mock me about such things. A woman must be educated to understand propriety. Sister only reads account books all day. The ways of merchants are vulgar. After all, things only petty commoners would learn. By immersing yourself in these matters daily, you are bringing shame upon His Highness. I didn't respond to her words, but turned to Chuan. "Is that what you think too?" Chuan looked away, silent for a long while before slowly speaking. "What Wangxin says is not without reason. Times are different now." What a lovely phrase, times are different now. No wonder the Chuan from back then was willing to support me in doing business. He said women should also carve out their own place in the world. He said I could do whatever I wanted. Later, when I was ostracized by the Merchant Guild for being a woman, Chuan was so anxious he was at his wit's end. After he rose to the position of chief secretary in the capital, the first thing he did was take my hand and bring me to meet the guild people. "Today, Your husband will stand up for his wife properly. No one will be allowed to harm my Ying in the slightest. The Chuan who once said women could carve out their own place in the world, now also says times are different. Have the times really changed, or has his heart changed? Chuan avoided my gaze. I picked up the tea on the table and drained it in one gulp. The bitterness of the tea washed over my taste buds. After setting the cup on the table, I had already put on a smile. Since that is the case, please don't let the stench of money on me taint the two of you. See yourselves out. Chuan frowned, only then remembering why he had come to find me. Tomorrow, summon the manager of Jinyu Pavilion. I need to host a banquet and give some instructions in advance. Jinyu Pavilion is mine, since we're divorced now. Let's keep things separate. If you want to hold a banquet, go get a number from the manager. Now Jinyu Pavilion had become the top restaurant in the capital, and even reserving the place required paying and getting a number in advance. Of course I used to let Pei Yanjiao use the back door, but it wouldn't be that easy anymore. Su Ying, don't go too far. You opened Jinyu Pavilion after we got married. According to the law, it should be split half and half in a divorce. What gives you the right to decide everything? Without this prince's support, could you have secured the position of the #1 restaurant? I didn't want to argue with Chuan about whether he had secretly helped or not, so I just had my maidservant bring out the dynasty's law book. A new policy was issued a few days ago. When a married couple divorces and has joint property, the management situation needs to be verified. If one party has never inspected the shop or known about the accounts and income, the property should belong to the other party. Hearing this, Chuan's face instantly turned pale. Because this new policy was issued on the 18th, and I happened to sign the divorce papers on the 19th. If your highness is not satisfied, go sue me at the Shunshan prefecture. You are being completely unreasonable. Going to court will only make you lose face. I stood up and stared coldly at Chuan, walking towards him step by step. So does your highness think that sending the divorce papers in front of all these people was giving me face? The divorce papers hadn't been submitted to the government office yet, but who among the capital's nobility didn't know that Chuan and I had already been sleeping in the same bed with different dreams? Chuan didn't say anything, but Zhang Wangxin held his hand looking aggrieved. At first, the prince was clearly willing to give sister a chance to be a concubine, but sister refused. Besides, even if this goes to the Shunshan prefecture, we're not afraid. As she spoke, she whispered a few words in Chuan's ear. Chuan's expression changed instantly. Su Ying, you forced me to do this. Then let's settle this in court. The people at the Shunshan prefecture probably never expected they would one day be handling the regent's family affairs. So much so that the official sitting above was trembling with fear, while Chuan and I remained calm and composed after learning about the divorce matter and reviewing the complaint. Lord Wang of the Shunshan prefecture first questioned Chuan. Does the prince know the revenue flow of the Golden Jade Pavilion? How could this prince not know? This month, the Golden Jade Pavilion brought in a total of 3,500 taels of silver. The kitchen has 36 people, the front hall servers. Hearing Chuan accurately describe the internal situation of the Golden Jade Pavilion, I immediately furrowed my brow. After all, aside from hosting banquets for colleagues, he had never set foot in the Golden Jade Pavilion, let alone known the specific figures in the account books. It seems the account books were stolen. Lord Wang immediately ordered someone to check the accounts. Chuan glanced at me smugly. We were husband and wife after all. I had no intention of embarrassing you like this. You forced me to do this. I clenched my fists, about to argue back, at least to stall for some time, when the person checking the accounts suddenly spoke. What the prince said doesn't match the account books. As soon as these words came out, everyone present's expressions changed drastically. Chuan rushed forward aggressively, snatched the ledger and examined it carefully. His expression grew increasingly ugly, and finally he threw the ledger on the ground in anger. The ledger was thrown in front of me, with the latest page showing a newly recorded income entry. Pei Yanjiao ordered 128 tables for a banquet, totaling 300 taels of silver paid in full. Without these 300 taels of silver, the numbers would have matched exactly what Lu Chuan claimed. How about we invite Lord Pei over to ask him? The Shunshin prefecture was also in a difficult position. Lu Chuan frowned and was about to refuse when a voice came from outside. My Lord Pei's right outside the door. He says he is willing to come testify. Pei Yanjiao walked into Shunshin prefecture with a calm and composed manner. The gold and jade ornaments on his body clinked softly with his movements. His peach blossom eyes swept over everyone present, and finally he sat down directly in a seat to the side. Since I am here as a witness, may I sit? Obviously, Lord Wang didn't want to offend the Pei family either. He immediately nodded and said yes, then cautiously asked about the matter with Jinyu Tower. Ah, that did indeed happen. Lu Chuan was furious upon hearing this. That still doesn't prove anything. This money could very well have been just written in by the shopkeeper, and he hadn't had time to report it yet. How could Su Ying possibly know about it? Before I could say anything, Pei Yanjiao had already spoken up. Of course she knew. She loves running over to Jinyu Pavilion to inspect the shop on regular days. That day, when I went to Jinyu Pavilion to place my order, I forgot to bring money, so I left my personal jade pendant as collateral. Shopkeeper Su, my jade pendant is still with you, right? Lu Chuan was fully confident he could take half of Golden Jade Pavilion, but in the end he could only leave Shunshin Prefecture in a huff. Before walking a few steps, he stopped and turned to look at me. Since the divorce papers have already been submitted, we're officially divorced now. Starting today, you don't need to return to the Wang Manor. In our dynasty. After a woman divorces her husband, she can choose to take her household registration and return home. But my parents are both dead, and I have nowhere to go. Lu Chuan knew I had no home and was determined to leave me on the streets. I could only wait for my household registration to be reissued, and during this time I had to stay temporarily at Golden Jade Pavilion. But before long, an imperial edict came from the palace summoning me and Lu Chuan to enter. Lu Chuan immediately distanced himself from me. She is not my wife now. There is no need for her to enter the palace with me. Your Highness, but the imperial edict means that Lu Chuan and Su Ying are to enter the palace together. I didn't know what it meant to be summoned individually, especially since I discovered quite a lot of people had arrived after I got there. The young new emperor, the grand princess, the empress dowager were all here, and even Pei Yanjiao was present. The current empress dowager is also a woman of the Pei clan, and the new emperor has half Pei family blood. This is also why Lu Chuan has always been wary of the Pei family. There are too many veteran officials at court, many of whom support the Pei family. His position as regent prince isn't very secure. The new emperor sat on the dragon throne and only spoke after seeing everyone had gathered. I summoned you all today to discuss the Zhongnan flood and the matter of the northwestern barbarians. I couldn't understand these state affairs at all. After listening for a long time, I only figured out that the northwest was in turmoil and troops had already been sent to suppress it, but the flooding in Zhongnan also needed to be dealt with, and now there was no money left. This Empress Dowager has heard that Su Ying has been in commerce for many years. The Empress Dowager's gaze fell on me, her meaning self-evident. I had paid up before too, and didn't even need to enter the palace. Lu Chuan would just stand in court and say the regent's manor was willing to contribute money. Then he'd have me raise the funds for him while he got all the credit. Since the Empress Dowager herself had spoken, I dropped to my knees with a thud. This commoner willingly offers 3,000 taels of gold. As soon as I finished speaking, Pei Yanjiao also stepped forward. The Pei family is also willing to offer 3,000 taels of gold. The Empress Dowager nodded repeatedly upon hearing this, then looked toward Lu Chuan. And you, my dear minister? I bit my lower lip, trying hard not to laugh out loud. This Empress Dowager has heard that you two have already divorced, so Lu Chuan hadn't expected this to involve him at all, but he'd always stepped up when things happened before he couldn't exactly play the coward now. Did the regent want to keep his face or not? This subject is also willing to contribute 3,000 taels of gold. Damn, I should have quoted a higher price if I'd known. Now that the disaster relief funds were raised, I thought I was done here, But Pei Yanjiao stepped forward again at this moment. Your Majesty, Su Ying cares deeply for her country. This subject has heard that her parents passed away early, and after divorcing the regent, her household registration has nowhere to belong. This subject proposes a generous reward for Su Ying. That makes sense. In that case, I bestow upon Su Ying the title of second-rank county princess. The enormous surprise that fell upon me left me unable to react for a long while. Because I had no household registration, I couldn't purchase property in the capital, but as a county princess, I could establish my own household. When I left the palace, my steps were still unsteady, and I looked at the certificate in my hand in disbelief. I had actually gone from a commoner to a county princess. From now on, I would have my own independent household registration, a name that belonged to me, no longer just wife of the Liu family or daughter of the Su family. I am Su Ying. I clutched the certificate tightly in my hand and walked toward the exit. A figure beside me passed by and blocked my path. What is your relationship with Pei Yanjiao? Lu Chuan's brows were tightly furrowed, his gaze toward me irritated and impatient. He gave you his jade pendant, and now he is speaking up for you. You two planned this together to set me up, didn't you? I don't understand what your highness means. I had no idea why Pei Yanjiao helped me either. After thinking it over, perhaps he simply wanted to make things unpleasant for Lu Chuan. When entering the palace, I shared a carriage with Lu Chuan, but on the way back I could ride in a carriage designated for a county princess. But just as I was about to get in, someone called out to me from afar. My carriage has run into some trouble. Would the county princess be so kind as to give me a ride? I looked at Pei Yanjiao in confusion. Could there really be such a coincidence in this world? But considering he had helped me several times, I agreed. The carriage rode smoothly, and there was calming incense inside. But with an extra man in the carriage, I couldn't help feeling restless and uneasy. Speaking of which, I owe Lord Pei for helping out these past few times. I'll definitely visit your residence in person to express my gratitude another day. Sure, when? I was silenced by that one question, after all. A normal person wouldn't react like this. Right? Is their PI family this hospitable? Once I've dealt with the matters at hand and prepared a generous gift. No need for such trouble, just come yourself. Pei Yanjiao leaned to one side with a radiant smile. If the county princess is willing to grace us with her presence, it would be an honor for the Pei family. I will personally accompany you. I clenched my fists, feeling like I'd somehow been played. As for the jade pendant Lord Pei left behind at the tailor shop, I'll arrange for someone to return it to its owner later. Why go through such trouble? Pei Yanjiao stared at me intently with those foxy eyes, the beauty mark beneath them adding an extra touch of allure. I felt my face heating up slightly and could only hurriedly look away. A soft sigh reached my ears, and Pei Yanjiao moved a bit closer. At this point, I might as well lay my cards on the table with the county princess. He took a deep breath, looked into my eyes, and said word by word, I've admired you for a long time. Now that you've already divorced Lu Chuan, would you consider me? I froze in place, unconsciously gripping my sleeve tightly, and only managed to squeeze out after a long while. Lord Pei must be joking. I am not joking. When I learned you and Lu Chuan divorced, I was overjoyed. I started appearing at the dress shop, Jinyu Pavilion, and other places you frequented most, just to run into you by chance. His sudden show of affection caught me off guard until the servant driving the carriage outside told me we had arrived at the Pei residence. Before getting off, Pei Yanjiao opened his folding fan to hide the smile at the corner of his lips, leaving only a pair of beautiful eyes blinking at me. County princess, you must consider me back then. I was hoping day and night for your divorce. Even as the carriage arrived at the regent's mansion, my thoughts were still a tangled mess. I couldn't figure out what Pei Yanjiao was trying to do. County princess, we've arrived. The maidservant helped me off the carriage. I looked at the grand and imposing gates of the regent's mansion, feeling neither sorrow nor joy in my heart. Today, I came back to collect the last of my belongings. I was directing the servants in the courtyard to load my things onto the carriage when Lu Chuan blocked my path. What do you mean by this? We're divorced. so naturally we need to divide our belongings. The items in the courtyard were gradually decreasing, and the furnishings inside were slowly being carried out. Yet at this moment, Chuan kicked and broke the pear blossom stool. Seeing him angry, everyone knelt on the ground. Since the stool wasn't mine anyway, I calmly watched him and asked what he wanted to do. "What do I want to do?" His chest heaved, as if words had gathered at his lips, only to be swallowed back down. "I want to marry Wangxin as soon as possible. Won't you stay to attend the ceremony? Why make things so ugly? What kind of sense does it make for an ex-wife to remain in the manor during a wedding?" But Chuan didn't care at all. He forcibly confined me to the courtyard, ordering me to stay and attend the ceremony. The wedding would be in 3 days. Upon learning the wedding would be in 3 days, Jiang Wangxin was visibly surprised. After all, many things weren't prepared yet. No matter how you looked at it, this was her first wedding. But Chuan had made up his mind. Jiang Wangxin didn't resist, only glanced at me before pulling Chuan's hand onto her lower abdomen. "All right, I also have some good news to tell you. I am pregnant." From start to finish, I sat in my courtyard drinking tea and watching the falling petals, ignoring the two of them being intimate in front of me. But when I heard Jiang Wangxin say she was pregnant, my index finger still trembled uncontrollably for a moment. "You are pregnant?" Chuan was somewhat surprised and subconsciously glanced at me. "Yes, this is your first child, Your Highness. You and my sister were married for years, yet she couldn't bear you any heirs." I slammed my teacup heavily on the table. Jiang Wangxin's smile grew even more smug. But the next second, Chuan gently pushed her away. "If you are pregnant, go back and rest properly." "Your Highness?" Jiang Wangxin didn't expect him to react this way. She wanted to say something more, but was already being led away by the maidservant. Only the two of us remained in the courtyard. Chuan slowly walked toward me, but before he could get close, I issued him a dismissal. "Congratulations. You can leave now." I fled back to my room. The moment I closed the door, my body lost all control and I slid down against the door frame, collapsing onto the floor. Chuan and I once had a child too. I had just gotten pregnant when the palace coup happened to force Chuan to surrender. They took me hostage. They demanded Chuan reveal the new emperor's whereabouts, or they would kill me. A dead man walking dares to be so impudent. Chuan shot an arrow through one of their heads, which enraged the others. I was taken as they fled. Just as they were about to sneak out of the city gate, they were stopped by the PC family who was guarding it. When I was found, I had collapsed in a vegetable cart, blood continuously flowing from my lower body. Days of hiding and not eating, I lost my child. As my consciousness faded, I felt someone take my hand. "Don't be afraid, I'll take you away." A tear slid down from the corner of my eye. Even speaking had become difficult, but I still managed to ask, "Where is Chuan?" I thought Chuan would come save me, but he abandoned me and went to protect the new emperor instead, successfully becoming the regent. Later he comforted me, saying, "We'll have another child. When it comes to family versus country, I had to give up one. Don't blame me." Chuan, now regent, was too busy to comfort me after losing our child. After the rival faction was imprisoned, Chuan was in charge of confiscating their properties, and it was then that he met Jiang Wangxin. Facing the property seizure, Jiang Wangxin stood in the courtyard, looking proud and unyielding. "My father did wrong. This is all his just deserts. Isn't the point of women studying to distinguish right from wrong?" So she righteously revealed the cellar where her own father was hiding, and thus saved herself from disaster. From then on, Jiang Wangxin's stubborn image was etched in Chuan's heart. Jiang Wangxin and Chuan's wedding was very rushed. In front of Chuan, Jiang Wangxin didn't throw tantrums, but would turn around and beat and scold the servants, because she couldn't get the flowers she wanted, because she didn't like the hairpins. Anyway, all sorts of reasons could become excuses for her to lash out. 3 days later at the wedding, I still didn't attend, just had someone deliver something to Chuan. But I didn't expect Chuan would come running to find me right when they were about to bow at the altar, He rushed into my courtyard. "Where did you get this?" He was holding a red jade bracelet, the last thing his mother left him. "Back when I was learning to do business, you sold it to support me. Later, when I made money, I found out the pawnshop had already sold it to someone else. After all these twists and turns, I finally found it now. Returning it to you, we're even." I had many people asking around before I finally got the red jade bracelet back. Back then, we were living tight. I wanted to set up a shop, and Chuan pawned his mother's keepsake. It was only later that I learned he had been injured at the time, hiding it from me and refusing to tell. I asked him why he didn't use the money to buy medicine for his wounds, but he just looked at me and smiled. "Yingjing is the most important to me. No one can compare to Yingying. I will always support you. Go do what you want to do." Chuan stared at the red jade bracelet for a long time without saying a word. I stood up and bid him farewell. "I won't attend the ceremony. Zhang Wangshan probably doesn't want to see me either. Chuan, I am very disappointed. Every time I see you, I think of the sweet times we spent together. I thought you felt the same, but now I realize that is not the case at all." The way he looked at me gradually turned to disgust, becoming more and more irritated. He stood too high now. Today he was the all-powerful regent, yet at noble banquets, he would unconsciously glance at those aristocratic families. The refined elegance those people cultivated since childhood was something Chuan envied deep in his bones. So he grew to despise his former self more and more, despising how he had clawed his way to his current position, suffering so much along the way. So after returning from that banquet, Chuan tried every method to wear away the thick calluses on his hands, wanting to be like those people who could decide others' life and death with casual conversation. He despised himself, and equally despised me, the wife who had built everything from nothing alongside him. "You think you've become a dragon among men, but seeing me reminds you of the days when you were just a rat." "So you like Zhang Wangxin. She was once a noble's daughter and deeply admires you. A wife well-versed in poetry and literature is perhaps more presentable than me, who only knows how to do accounting. Most importantly, by getting rid of me, you completely get rid of the rat you once were." Chuan stood frozen in place, looking at the red wedding robes on him. I only felt it was laughable. The front courtyard was too noisy, so I left through the side gate. Only a little maidservant was following me. She had been with me for many years. I once thought about giving her the deed of sale and letting her go home, but she still wanted to stay with me. After getting on the carriage, the little maidservant looked at the regent's manor growing farther and farther away, still feeling indignant. This red jade bracelet also cost a fortune to track down and buy back. "You let him off too easy." I rubbed my temples and chuckled softly, patting the box at my feet. This box contained the most important land deeds. Even if Chuan and I are splitting up completely, I won't let myself suffer a loss. More than half of the regent's manor's assets have been taken away, and he still has to raise 3,000 taels of gold for disaster relief funds. With no income and only relying on his salary, just wait for it all to run out. Life is so long, I am not willing to hang myself on one person. I haven't enjoyed enough blessings in this life yet. After moving into the County Princess Manor, I started decorating again, arranging the manor to my liking. While I was doing the accounts, a servant came to report that the things had been returned. A jade pendant engraved with the Pi family crest was placed before me, and I couldn't help but sigh. Lord Pi didn't accept it, and he even wrote a note. I picked up the note pressed under the jade pendant. There was only one sentence on it. "Gold and jade are but vulgar trinkets. How could they compare to a beauty's smile? But if I don't return this vulgar trinket, I really can't smile." Also, Lord Pei asked, "Now that the county princess has established her own household and moved into a new residence, when does she plan to hold a banquet? He will definitely attend." I rubbed my brow and dismissed them for now. It is not that I hadn't thought about holding a banquet. After all, doing business in the capital requires making connections. But right now, I only have the title of county princess in name. In essence, I am still a merchant. The nobles of the capital might not give me face. Let's prepare the invitations first. Whether people come or not is another matter. But I didn't expect that on the day of the banquet. Not only did people come, it was quite lively. The Pei family's carriage was the first to arrive, and the person who stepped out was actually the Pei family's old madam, a first rank titled Lady Pei Yanjiao, carefully helped her down from the carriage, and didn't forget to wink at me when he was done. Old Madame Pei held my hand while chatting, and at the same time instructed people to carry the gifts she brought inside. The second to arrive was the general's wife, with whom I'd always had a poor relationship. She glanced at me dismissively and had her people bring forward the gifts. Don't thank me. I just haven't had any wine to drink lately and was too bored, so I came to the banquet. Afterwards, Madame Wang and Madame Li, who had always been on good terms with me, both came. Madame Wang even held my hand and whispered in my ear, "I heard from my husband that the regent's wedding didn't complete the ceremony that day." "Why?" they said when they were bowing to heaven and earth. The regent suddenly fainted, and in the end the guests could only leave on their own. Because I was busy with my own affairs, plus the people around me were afraid I'd be sad. They all talked to me about Chuan's matters, so I was a bit surprised to hear this. But that new princess consort still moved in openly, and later even held a banquet. The new princess consort doesn't get along with anyone. She looked down on General Zhang's family for being too vulgar as military born, said Madame Li, as the Grand Tutor's daughter only reads pedantic books and lacks her own charm, and even when young Lady Yang from Lord Yang's family voluntarily played the zither to liven up the atmosphere, she still looked down on her for having a lowly manner. Madame Li nodded repeatedly upon hearing this. Anyway, with that arrogant attitude of hers, no woman in the entire capital could compare to herself. Yet the things at the banquet were so stingy and cheap that the general's wife left on the spot. I didn't expect so much drama had happened in the half-month since I left more, and more guests came to the banquet, nearly blocking the road. I was busy until late into the night. Actually, I knew many of the people who came later, only attended because they heard that old Madame Pei was also here. When leaving, old Madame Pei held my hand and talked with me for a long time. Our Yanjiao often praises you at home, saying you are unconventional and decisive in your actions. If you have time in the future, do come visit the Pei residence often. My face felt hot from her words. After helping her onto the carriage, I watched until she disappeared into the distance before preparing to enter the residence. Before turning around, I vaguely saw a figure not far away. It was Chuan. I didn't know how long he had been standing in the shadows by the wall corner, and the gatekeeper didn't know when he had arrived either. He didn't come forward, just stood there not far away, quietly watching the gate of the county princess's residence. Close the gate now. I slipped inside the gate and urged the servant to close it. Be more careful when watching the gate from now on. Don't let just any stray dog or cat in. What if they pee by the wall corner? There was still a huge pile of cleanup work after the banquet ended. Just then, the servant came back with a message. Someone is knocking at the gate. Not seeing anyone. It is Lord Pei. Pei Yanjiao had actually turned back, saying he had dropped a jade pendant. I wonder if the county princess could let me in to look for it. I nodded and led him inside, but after walking into the courtyard, Pei Yanjiao didn't hurry to look for anything with his head down. Instead, he gazed at the bright moon in the sky and spoke with feeling. The moon tonight is truly beautiful. I once had a wish in my heart too, if only I could admire the moon together with someone I like. Pei Yanjiao, I impatiently interrupted him. What exactly do you want to say? Pei Yanjiao has seen all kinds of gold and jade since childhood. Why would he personally come visit late at night just for a jade pendant? Since the county princess already knows my feelings, I'll just say it directly. I admire you. The thing I am most grateful for in my life is stopping those people at the city gate and finding you. But the thing I regret most is sending you back to Chuan's side. He clearly doesn't love you yet. You kept entangling with him. I finally waited until you divorced, and I want to fight for myself too. Saying this, Pei Yanjiao held up 3 fingers. Just 3 months. Okay, give me 3 months. If after 3 months you still don't like me, then I am willing to leave your side. I let out a long breath. Scared me to death. I thought he was going to make a vow in front of me. After going through all this, I now understand that vows of eternal love are nothing but fleeting clouds. How much weight can words that just roll off the tongue really carry? Pei Yanjiao, you are a young master from a noble family. Why bother entangling yourself with me? But the premise is, I am also just an ordinary man. I like you. I want to get close to you. I just want to fight for myself one more time. He lowered his eyes to hide the emotions in them, his voice trembling. Could it be that you won't even give me this small chance? I clenched my fists, unable to speak for a moment, could only silently look at the man before me. The moment the moonlight fell on him, despite being adorned with pearls and jade, it couldn't hide the stunning beauty on his face. Perhaps the moon tonight was just too beautiful, causing me to momentarily lose my senses. All right, if that is the case, then let's see how you perform. I never expected myself to agree to him just like that, as if possessed by some spirit. I had someone return the jade pendant he had once left behind to him. Pei Yanjiao's hand caressed this jade pendant, seemingly lost in thought. This jade pendant was originally meant to be kept for my future wife. If you can't accept me for now, I'll put it away first and give it to you again in 3 months. Okay, how can you be so sure? I'll definitely accept it in 3 months. Pei Yanjiao raised his head and looked at me with a smile, stars flashing in his eyes. I don't know, but I want to try once. From that day on, the number of times I ran into Pei Yanjiao skyrocketed. Whether I was strolling around the capital or inspecting various shops, I could always see his figure. It wasn't until the Shangzi festival that this man directly sent me an invitation asking me to go out. Pei Yanjiao really knew how to appreciate elegance. Knowing there were many people on the shore, he deliberately took me on a boat ride across the lake, heading toward less crowded areas. Sitting in the painted pleasure boat, listening to little tunes indeed had a unique charm. But I noticed a figure on the shore. Jiang Wangxin stood alone by the shore looking dejected, with Chuan nowhere to be seen beside her. Just as I wanted to take a closer look, Pei Yanjiao had already stood in front of me, blocking my view. Today you are not allowed to look at anyone else, only at me. How domineering. I silently grumbled in my heart. How come I never noticed there was such a jealous streak beneath that gentle, refined exterior? Pei Yanjiao not only frequently ran into me by chance, but also found ways to create opportunities to meet. Today he'd spend a fortune at Jinyu Pavilion. Tomorrow the P family would host a banquet and invite me. As we gathered more often, gradually some people started sensing something was off. Some even went specifically to ask Pei Yanjiao about it, and I happened to pass by and heard the voices inside. Why does Lord Pei insist on keeping his eyes on the county princess? Have you forgotten that she? So what? If a pearl falls into the mud, is it the pearl's fault or the mud's fault? That group fell silent, and I turned to leave, only feeling my heartbeat quickening. Not long after the rumors about me and Pei Yanjiao started spreading, an uninvited guest arrived at the manor. Chuan's skills easily allowed him to bypass the guards in the courtyard and reach my room. He stopped outside the window, only softly calling my name. But what awaited him was me crying loudly for help. When the guards dragged him out, he still looked at me in disbelief. You clearly knew it was me. So why did you call for people? Precisely because it is you. I don't want to see you anymore. Spending time at Jinyu Pavilion, I also heard quite a bit of news. For instance, Chuan was now being attacked from all sides at court. The 3,000 taels of gold he had promised before still hadn't been delivered, and the court officials had many complaints about him. Back then, the only reason he got the position of regent was because of his merit in protecting the new emperor. But as the emperor grew older day by day, he gradually saw through his wolfish ambitions. Besides, he wasn't the only minister available in the capital. Nowadays, the factional strife has become increasingly obvious. Many of Chuan's subordinates couldn't hold their temper, often causing trouble in the capital. Some were even bold enough to directly launch a coup. The moment he received the news, Pei Yanjiao came to see me first. Don't go out tonight. Have all the torches lit. No one should rest. Keep watch in the courtyard at all times, and don't let anyone in. He carefully instructed me, and only then did I notice he was dressed in military attire today. Before he left, I finally couldn't help but call out to him. "Will you be in danger?" He walked a couple of steps, then turned back and stopped to look at me. "With those words from you, I will surely protect myself well tonight." The struggles in the palace seemed to have little to do with common folk. While everyone was fast asleep, the palace was already in fierce battle. I sat anxiously in the courtyard, keeping watch the entire night, until someone brought news the next day. The treasonous ministers of the coup had all been executed. In this coup, the ringleaders were precisely Chuan's direct subordinates, so unsurprisingly he was labeled a traitor, and his noble title was stripped on the spot. The series of factional struggles gradually made everyone busy. I sat in the Jinyu pavilion, listening to those officials and nobles talk about the situation inside the palace. Which minister was promoted today, who was demoted by the emperor? That emperor was young, but his mind was exceptionally meticulous. Chuan's subordinates were beheaded one by one, or had their homes confiscated and were exiled. He became increasingly isolated in the capital, and even the matter of him bailing out Zhang Wangxin back then was dug up again. Zhang Wangxin, as the descendant of a guilty official, was taken away once more. But this time, Pei Yanjiao was powerless to protect her. In just half a year, the situation in the capital grew increasingly tense, and I began to think about leaving. I had come to the capital with Chuan, but the place I really wanted to go was Jiangnan. Once this idea sprouted, it kept growing stronger in my mind. So finally one day, I made up my mind to go south and do business. I asked the people around me, those who wanted to stay in the capital could take their indenture contracts and leave. Still, quite a few people were willing to come with me. When leaving, I turned back to look at the capital, this place where I had stayed for so many years. I had experienced too much here, and I wanted a different life. I turned to leave and was about to get on the carriage when I suddenly heard someone calling me. "Where are you going?" Pei Yanjiao rode out on horseback, chasing after me anxiously. Back then, we had agreed to give him a 3-month chance. But later things got too busy, and this matter seemed to have fizzled out. "Are you going to Jiangnan? I'll go with you." I widened my eyes and looked at him in surprise. "What kind of joke are you making?" "I am not joking. As long as you don't mind me, I'll follow you wherever you go." As he spoke, he took out the thing he had been holding in his palm all along. It was that jade pendant. "As long as you can accept me, even if it means going to the ends of the earth, climbing mountains of blades, or diving into seas of fire, I'll follow you." I was silent for a long time, and finally took the jade pendant from his palm. "If that is the case, then come with me."